As an organism depending on one specific family of plants, monarch reproduction must be in sync with milkweed life cycles by virtue of survival. Like all other plant-dependent organisms, monarchs have crucial windows of opportunity with regard to milkweed development, both on individual specimen levels and evolutionary scales. There are several internal and external factors affecting the growth of milkweed, each of which imposes unique ecological selection pressures on monarch larval growth and reproduction. On a biotic front, milkweed predation and external interference have been major factors contributing to the evolution of monarch migration and reproduction patterns. As many might expect, higher incidences of predation early in the monarch life cycle directly affects this butterfly's population demography. Direct interference involves the consumption of eggs and young larvae. Indirect interference involves increased competition for areas and habitats that house milkweed populations. Together, the ecological pressures imposed by pests and predators have and continue to modify monarch migration patterns and survivability. On an abiotic front, the environmental conditions of the milkweed habitat ultimately decide how and where communities can grow. Factors such as soil depth, access to water, and elevation can substantially affect the growth potential of milkweed. Most milkweed species consumed by monarchs grow best in close proximity to water, with low elevation and relatively little precipitation. Population census from monarch tracking across North America have found that monarch reproduction sites tend to favor said conditions, with many key reproductive sites throughout the migratory pathway aligning with the ideal milkweed growth conditions. Considering these various competing influences, one can see how milkweed growth conditions and population trends have directly influenced the evolution of monarch migration. While the monarch's precise origins within the North American continent are not definitively known, the diverse range of the milkweed family has directly influenced complex behavioral traits within the monarch. The migrating populations of monarchs undergo 4 generations a year. The first generation starts in Mexico, traveling northward to the southeastern United States in the early spring. The second generation reproduces throughout North America, with the third generation migrating northward all the way to southern Canada by midsummer. The fourth generation retreats back to Mexico in the fall, before the onset of frost. This amazing and fascinating system has required the evolution of many complex traits, including the dual internal clock mechanism required to steer the butterflies south to Mexico, as well as reproductive diapause at certain periods of the migration journey. These unique traits have been entirely a product of milkweed growth patterns. New generations are near perfectly aligned with the annual growth stages of North American milkweed species. These coinciding life cycles reflect strong selective pressures to expand habitats, with many diverse mutations over millions of years helping perfect the world-famous monarch migration. Evidence of coevolution is made even stronger when considering the many stationary monarch subpopulations throughout the world. In locations ranging from New Zealand to Spain, there are milkweed and monarch populations that have been established through human migration and settlement. In these enclaves, complex migratory impulses are silenced, with monarchs remaining relatively stationary. Because milkweed communities are able to grow year-round in these locations, so too does natural selection remodify monarch populations to reproduce in tandem with these milkweed enclaves. Discussing these ecological selection pressures is hugely relevant in the present day given the context of climate change, more specifically severe weather events. As a result of more extreme weather events, such as flash floods and drought, coupled with the gradual recession of fresh bodies of water throughout the world, especially in North America, the habitat that natural selection once favored for milkweed is rapidly changing. The declining milkweed populations could have dire implications for the evolutionary future of monarch populations. Fewer milkweed specimens could lead to the extirpation of monarchs from certain regions of its eastern migration route, thus destroying the entire sensory evolution of the insect. New strains of the specimens would need to evolve to adapt to milkweed geography, perhaps forcing the insect to become stationary in the southern US or Mexico. Nonetheless, taking action on the front of climate change and habitat restoration are both key to protecting the carefully woven coevolution of monarchs and milkweed on a geographic and migratory level.